Hello Internet, Jojo here, and I've been on a bit of an Admiral binge for a while. And today we're taking a stab at recalculating the power of Marine Admiral Aiokiji's greatest ice age. Now, while you might have seen my previous video doing the same thing, believe me, this is going to be considerably better and far more accurate. After all, a lot's changed since then. So, that said, let's go. When the Ice Admiral Aioki is first introduced, he shows off his extraordinary power by freezing the ocean far past the horizon. The thing is, the edge of the horizon in One Piece is canonically 50 kilometers away, so because we can't see any islands even that far in the direction of an island, the next island must be at least 50 kilometers away. Now, the most dangerous thing you can do when calculating a feat is make an unsupported assumption, even if it is only mild. It will always be better to have some manner of fact to go off of, even if it's a small one. So, in order to find the edge of the ice, we'll use this and the things in this panel. In this panel, we are given Aiokiji's perspective on the island and his understanding on how Tangent wants to cross to them. We know that he froze the ice directly towards the second island, so this gives us the direction that the ice moved. However, we need to know how much of the third island the ice came in contact with. Did the ice stop right at the island's coast, or was the island completely enveloped in ice? Did Aioki freeze all 7 of the islands? How much ice is surrounding the island that they're currently on? These are the kind of questions that you have to ask, but are unanswerable. But we still have to find an answer. We cannot just make an unfounded assumption in order to force the situation to make sense. So instead, we'll use the start and end of this path as the edges of the frozen area. I think this makes a lot of sense, as this particular image, like I mentioned before, is Aiokiji's understanding of the situation, his perspective on Tangent's goal, and is a fundamental part of his plan to freeze the ocean. After all, you can't really do something on this scale without some sort of plan in mind. By making sure that the line that indicates the direction he froze the ice is in the direct center of the circle, and making sure that the edge of the circle is in the center of the start and end point of this path, we find the area that he froze. So using this information, we can get what we need. Using the distance from the coast of the first island to the coast of the second, which we know is at the very least 50 kilometers, we can find the ice stretched about 479 kilometers from the coast and 565 kilometers in total, accounting for the ice that froze behind him. This would give the frozen area a coverage of nearly 251,000 square kilometers. This is about 60% the size of California, and is by no means unsupported, as the characters literally call it a continent of ice. Though Aioki didn't freeze all the islands over, as it would certainly kill literally every living thing on those islands, turning them into barren husks when the ice melts. The ice seemed to be covering only about 3 islands in total. The 2 islands in the middle, about 1/3 of the last island, and about 2/3 of the first. Adding all these up together, and we get 3 islands. Still using this panel, each of these islands measure in at about 12,400 kilometers squared. Subtracting the non-frozen area from the frozen area, and we get a final frozen area of 214,000 square kilometers. Now, for the record, these islands are likely not actually this size, but they are clearly depicted to be this large, so at the very least, it will allow us to say, at the very least, to the final result. Now, the only question left in order to calculate how much ice he made is the depth of the ice, and it's actually pretty simple. Many people have used Aiokiji's statement about it being good for a week to justify it only being a few feet of depth, but that's simply just not true. You have to remember, Tangent is not normal. He just spent 10 years on top of stilts, which would inherently strengthen his legs to an absurd degree, and he's pulling all his worldly possessions and a horse behind him without any effort. Tangent is about as far as normal as you can get. Not to mention that this is the Grand Line. We just saw a sinking hanging out at the coast. There's no telling what other kind of creatures and pirates Aioki had in mind when he made this statement. Not to mention that Aioki always takes a bike wherever he travels, so his perception of time and distance is going to be a bit skewed when talking about someone who walks. Aioki could also be referring to the outer edge of the ice, as that is what would melt first and fastest. It would take at least a week for the ice to melt enough to not let Tangent reach the third island. It would take way longer to melt the rest of the ice all the way. Also, he has his awakening, which can permanently change the environment. All this combined, assuming that he is using a normal thought process when estimating the time, is absurd. So instead of using this statement, we'll use the depth of the ice from when he froze the crescent-shaped bay near Marineford. The ability that he used here was not named, so it should be inherently much weaker than Ice Age, and we can find its depth by using this iceberg. Now, Oda has always been really bad when it comes to scaling characters' heights to the environment around them, so recently I have been trying to avoid straight up comparison to characters. However, after running through multiple calculations with various methods, comparing the ice to Akainu is the best thing to do actually. I don't like this, but it actually makes a whole lot more sense. Comparing it to Akainu put it at about 245 meters wide, and gives less room for error as it is a direct comparison. So using this method, the iceberg comes to be about 258 meters deep. Taking the iceberg's depth and applying it to Aokiji's Ice Age attack from the Long Ring Longland Island, and we get a total of 55,454 cubic kilometers of ice. This is about 0.18% of the total ice in the Arctic. Okay, I figured it was going to be much more impressive than that when I wrote this comparison in the script, but it's just not. The energy to make this ice from this water would be about 4.19 teratons of TNT. Impressive, but that's just not all there is here. You see, kinetic energy is a really fickle thing. Aokiji's Ice Age covered this total area in exactly 5 seconds, meaning that it would need to be moving at about 95,891.2 meters per second. This is 279 times the speed of sound, and is nearly on par with lightning itself, though considering the characters he fights, it could be much faster. Combining this speed with the massive weight of the ice, 50.9 trillion kilograms, and this would have a kinetic energy of, get this, 56 petatons of TNT. This is 23 times more powerful than some of the most powerful solar flares, and means that it definitely lives up to its name, Ice Age. Now, in case you're a little iffy on the kinetic energy part, just remember this. We can give him the kinetic energy as a feat, because if he could not generate this level of power, it would not have gone out as far, out as fast. In fact, this feat is nearly identical to Madara's World Tree feat, which is actually the reason I decided to recalculate this one. So, thanks Death Battle, some of the best lessons I have ever learned came from you. Anyways, with this, we now have Aokiji's Ice Age calculated one final time. So, if you like this kind of content, check out my Patreon. I got some good stuff over there. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you next time. Remember to stay spectacular. JoJo, out.